Alright, good afternoon. It's good to see you all again. Now that you're here, I guess we'll learn something new. So last week we discussed two things. Can anyone tell me what these two things are? Yes, independent clauses and dependent clauses. We're going to do a little review before we get into what we're going to learn today. So what is an independent clause? An independent clause, it's a group of words that contain a subject and a predicate and express a complete thought. So can anyone tell me what a predicate is? Yes, it's a verb. Another word for a verb, a fancy word for a verb. So an independent clause, if it contains a subject and a predicate and expresses a complete thought, what would that be? Yes, a complete sentence. So, whenever you see independent clauses, you are looking at a complete sentence. Alright. So now a dependent clause. An independent clause is a complete sentence because it expresses a complete thought and contains a subject and a predicate. What would a dependent clause be? Yes, so a dependent clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a predicate but are lacking one thing. They are dependent on one thing to become a sentence. So that one thing would be it does not express a complete thought. It is not a complete sentence. It can never be a complete sentence until it expresses that complete thought. It's kind of a cliffhanger. So, it's a group of words that contain subject and a predicate and do not express a complete thought. So, I'll keep that on the board for you to refer to as we go into what we're going to learn today. We're going to be learning and discussing sentence structure. So sentence structure is very important for young writers and writers of all ages. Varying your sentences in length can make your writing more interesting and more fun to read. So by the end of today, we will transform from average writers to writers such as Suzanne Collins, whom you all know as the author of Hunger Games. So, let's get started. We got simple sentences. This is the first type of sentence we will be discussing. So, based on that and based on what we've already discussed, what is a simple sentence? What can you infer from that? It is simply a subject plus a predicate or verb and it expresses a complete thought. So that is a simple sentence. Simple sentence is basically an independent clause. It is an independent clause. Subject, predicate, complete thought, simple sentence. Pretty simple, huh? So, an example would be these students sang happy birthday to Miss DeLay. So, someone please raise your hand and tell me where the subject and the predicate are. Okay? So, these students would be the subject of this sentence. Sang being the verb. Verbs, what you do. So the students sang happy birthday to Miss DeLay would be a simple sentence. Contains a subject and a predicate and expresses a complete thought. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, please raise your hand, and I will be more than happy to answer them at any point during this discussion. Okay. Next, we will be discussing what compound sentences are. So a compound sentence would be two independent clauses conjoined by a coordinating conjunction and a comma or a semicolon. So, a compound sentence. So independent clauses are complete sentences. With a compound sentence, you are going to combine two complete sentences, independent clauses, and joining them with a coordinating conjunction. So if you just had two independent clauses and a sentence with nothing in there to separate them, it would seem a little confusing and a little pointless to not have a period or any end punctuation in. So, a compound sentence is a sentence and then a comma followed by a coordinating conjunction and then followed by another sentence. Now, coordinating conjunctions are words that you all use every single day. And a good way, or an easy way, fun way to remember these words would be an acronym called fanboys. So, let's go through them. For, it's the F. And, not, but, or, yet, and so. Those are your coordinating conjunctions that are going to conjoin the two independent clauses that make up a compound sentence. Now, let's do an example. So an example of a compound sentence would be, we worked on our homework while they clean their room. Okay, now while you're looking at this while I write it, let's point out the two independent clauses, not while, and they clean their room. Okay, so let's point out the two independent clauses. You've got, independent clauses, complete thought, subject and predicate. So, we would be the subject. Worked would be the predicate or verb. Now, here's the difference. This is how you join them. You have a comma, and a coordinating conjunction. And the second letter in the acronym fanboys. So you've got a coordinating conjunction followed by, or a comma followed by a coordinating conjunction, and then you've got another independent clause. They being the subject, clean being the predicate or verb. So there's your example of a compound, and now we will move on to our third and final sentence structure. So when we first got into class, we discussed the two clauses that we went over last week, independent and dependent. Dependent has not come into play yet. So with a complex sentence, we're going to use a little bit of dependent clauses. So complex is a dependent clause along with an independent clause. So it's a sentence with a dependent clause plus an independent clause. Okay? So, now Now keep in mind, these do not have to be in any specific order. Dependent and independent can go in any part of the sentence as long as they're both in there. You will find a complex sentence. So here's an example to help you understand better what a complex sentence looks like. We'll go over it real quick. After they finish studying, that right there, as you can see, is not a complete thought. Therefore, that is your dependent clause. Now we'll go on with our independent. Bill and Maria went to the movies. Okay, so let's point out how this is an independent clause. So Bill and Maria, the subject, went, the predicate, to the movies. Bill and Maria went to the movies. That can stand alone as a complete sentence, correct? Good. So this is what a complex sentence looks like. You have a dependent clause followed by an independent clause. And again, they can go in any order as long as you see a sentence with a dependent and independent clause in there as a complex sentence. Okay, now that we have discussed the three types of sentences, I want you to apply what we've learned. So this is a fun little worksheet with 2 short paragraphs in it. And I am going to ask you to carefully read these and go through each and identify each sentence as either a simple, compound, or complex. I'm going to give you 3 colored pencils. You assign each sentence, each type of sentence, with a color. So if you have simple, compound, or complex, you have red, yellow, green. Simple's red, compound's yellow, complex is green. However you want to do it, I just want you to go through each sentence and identify it as any of the 3 sentences that we've gone over. Now you have the notes, but if you have any questions, I will be walking around the room and taking any questions that you may have. So, when I get done passing this out, I will read you the instructions again, answer any questions, and then go on and read the paragraphs for you. Okay.